So good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and you're very welcome to Belfast City Hall. We're really pleased to see you today, and we're really excited about what we have to share with you today. And I'm just going to pass over to our opening speaker, the Lord Mayor, Councillor Nuala McAllister. Just before I do that, I need to tell you that we don't have a fire drill organised for today. So if you hear the fire alarm, you will have to leave by the doors on your right, straight down the stairs and straight out the side of the building. So, without any further ado, as they say, I'm really pleased to pass over to our Lord Mayor, Nuala McAllister.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Deborah. It's fantastic to see such a huge crowd of people here. I think that's really indicative of our digital revolution that we have ongoing in the city of Belfast, and Belfast City Council are very keen and eager to become players in that and ensure that we remain on the leadership field when it comes to our new digital economy. I think it is recognition that the approach offers many opportunities here in Belfast for our digital revolution, not only for our digital innovators, but for the whole of Belfast. Because what we're trying to achieve through our Smart Belfast framework is not only for us as Belfast City Council, not only for you as private companies, but also for our citizens of Belfast. We need to ensure that the people can get something out of this, and that's why we are moving forward here today. It's a very exciting time to be the Lord Mayor of Belfast. We have quite huge opportunities ongoing in our city. We have our Belfast agenda, which I'm sure many of you have heard about, but I'll just speak a little bit on. That's our 20-year strategic plan for the city. We have new ideas that will bring us forward into 2035, ideas to grow our population, ideas to grow tourism, jobs, enterprise, and infrastructure renewal. We want to build on our phenomenal success of the past decade, because Belfast has truly blossomed in the last 5 to 10 years. We are really coming into our own now, and it is about time that we do not stall that, but we grasp the opportunities that we have. We are currently in discussion with other councils, with private stakeholders, over a multi-million-pound city growth deal that seeks to establish a devolved package of focused investment in infrastructure, employability and skills. And if agreed, this could be a real game changer for Belfast. So not only do we have our Belfast agenda, our smart cities, our Smart Belfast framework, but we have the possibility of securing maximum opportunity for the people of Belfast through this city growth deal. And I would urge that as private companies in the public sector that we all get behind this together, because this is for everyone in Belfast and the wider region. We also have our bid to become the European Capital of Culture by 2023. This is a joint bid with Derry and Strabane District Council. And this is a massive opportunity because if successful, it will shine a spotlight on our region 25 years from the Good Friday Agreement. I would urge those of you who have not yet get involved to perhaps tap into our We Are 2023 hashtag on social media. Make sure to get involved and express why you think that Belfast and Derry is the capital of culture in Europe. Each of these initiatives represents massive opportunities for our city and for the entire region. They all have something in common. They all represent a huge challenge as well. So if we want to make any of these opportunities a reality, we really need to think differently. We need to think innovatively about how city government can work better with businesses, with industry, and with our universities. We are pleased that in Belfast City Council, we are already doing this. But we cannot do it alone. We need to work in a two-way process with our private sector and with Belfast City Council leadership. We need to get cleverer about co-opting the huge talent pool in our city and within our local communities as well. And we need to very quickly start adopting cutting-edge ideas and technologies, because if we don't, we are going to continue to be left behind. We need to ensure that we put our best foot forward. And as its most fundamental, it's the ambition of our smart cities, our Smart Belfast framework, because we want to work in partnership to do what is best for the city. Belfast City Council is up for the challenge of working with many of our partners in order to achieve it. I'm delighted to say that we already aren't doing this alone. We're doing this with a little help from those who are perhaps more experts in the field. And I'm very delighted that we have had Piva with us this morning. He has travelled all the way from China, not his permanent home, but I'm sure you don't know what day it is or what time, but we are very delighted to have you here. Carl is the Vice President of Global Strategies at the TM Forum, and it is key that we work in partnership over the next 12 months to ensure that we really get this off the ground. Also joining us this morning is the team from Future Cities Catapult. We have been working in partnership with them over the past few months to ensure that we can tap into best practice nationally and internationally, because by working with other cities around the world is truly where we will see our success. I would also like to welcome Linda from InvestNI and Alistair Hamilton from InvestNI, because as well as launching this framework this morning, we're also launching our Collaborative Challenge programme. This is an excellent opportunity for Indigenous companies, small SMEs, to get involved in what we want to achieve, to innovatively tackle problems. We have 5 main areas, and we are hoping that we can come up with these solutions over the next few months. I think this is a fantastic opportunity, and we are hoping that we can see some new ideas as the few months go forward, and I don't doubt that there will be a huge amount of interest in that. I will now hand over to our Chair of Strategic Policy and Resources Committee, because as well as at Council level, we have also been working at political level, because we need to ensure that everyone is behind this framework. And I'm very glad that in Belfast City Council, we have great working relationship across all parties, great relationships with our officers as well, and this is truly a collaborative framework, not only from Belfast City Council and out, but also within council level. But before I hand over, I want to thank everyone again for coming here this morning. We look forward to working with you in the next 12 months to really get this framework off the ground. We hope that we can innovate new ideas in Belfast that see us not only coming into our own, but leading the way. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy the morning.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Deirdre Hargey, and I'm the Chair of the Strategic Policy and Resources Committee within Council. And you are all very welcome. It's great to see such a big crowd today. And as the Lord Mayor said, we just recently passed this framework at the committee on Friday, and we're keen to engage with all of you as the political leaders in the city in terms of finding solutions to city problems that we face that improve the quality of life for all. So just over the past year, the Council has been talking to our partners about how we might support greater innovation across the city and the role of local government can play in harnessing innovation to address urban challenges. The case for urban innovation is clear. Government and cities are opening in a rapidly changing environment. Major technological change, in particular, is having a profound economic and social consequence in timescales that can be measured in years rather than decades. If the public sector is to have any hope of responding in a timely manner, we need to think differently about how we design and deliver programmes, interventions and services. To do that, we need to start borrowing cutting-edge ideas from the digital sector, from our university research laboratories. This drive for innovation has directly led to the development of our Smart Belfast framework. Other cities have developed their own smart city strategies. Some have set themselves up as the testbeds for experimental innovation. Others have attempted to build smart urban systems around transport, energy or water management. Our own approach has deliberately not been driven by technology. Instead, Smart Belfast is about fostering the right mix of conditions that allow such technologies to deliver better outcomes for our citizens. We have identified 4 foundations that we believe are the essential mix. These are described in more detail in the framework document itself that you all have a copy of. The first is the shared city challenges. This is about breaking down silos, about partners getting better at building agreement on the challenges that cities face, and getting communities and commitments to work together on addressing them. The second is about engaging the innovator community. Belfast has over 70 digital SMEs, 2 universities with world-class research in areas such as data science and cyber security. We also have a strong innovator community interested in both the economic and civic opportunities of open data. How then does the public sector create the opportunities to work with such partners that goes beyond the limited traditional procurement processes? The third foundation is building a data assets. Cities generate huge quantities of data, but we are usually poor at exploiting it appropriately. The foundation is about opening up the data, making it available for repurposing, and building our understanding about the potential of data science and addressing public policy challenges. The last foundation we have called robust delivery mechanisms, and this is about rethinking delivery. How do we create agile solutions that allow us to experiment, to take risks and to learn, and if indeed to pivot when things aren't working? Our longer-term plan going forward is to use project-led approach that addresses individual challenges on a project-by-project basis, while at the same time strengthening these 4 foundations. Over the past year, the Smart Belfast team have delivered a number of demonstrator projects based on this approach. For example, they have explored the application of machine learning to enhance the accuracy of the city's rates register. With support from Future Cities Catapult, they have developed tools of map urban capacity for future growth. And in collaboration with a wide range of partners, we are currently developing a state-of-the-art motion sensors on the Belfast bike scheme to help understand cycling behaviour better. The Council's ambition now is to scale up the project pipeline with the support of commercial, academic and community partners. We see the Joint Collaborative Challenge programme with InvestNI as one of a series of vehicles that can be used for this purpose. It is a very welcome opportunity for the SMEs to work with Council and other public sector partners to address real-world problems while contributing to our foundations. As such, we look forward to hearing your proposals and working with you and collaborating in the future. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Hargay, and also to Lord Mayor for that introductory speech. So in a few minutes, we're going to hear from our Deputy Chief Executive, Ronan Cregan, on some of the real projects and initiatives that we're going to be launching over the next coming couple of weeks and months. But just before that, I'd like to introduce you to Carl Piva, already referenced by the Lord Mayor. And Carl is a global thought leader in the whole area of smart cities. So we're really excited to hear about Carl's experiences in other cities across the world and what we can bring to Belfast and what we can learn here about this approach. Welcome, Carl.
Thank you, Deborah. Good morning, everybody. How are you today? Good? I just want to say you have a phenomenal opportunity in Belfast, and I'm not even from here, as you can hear. But I do travel around the world quite a lot, and I do meet quite a lot of cities. And I can tell you there are very few places where you can align the political will with the executive will, with the business side of the equation as well. So you're all going to want to hear from Ronan in a second about all the funds available to make this happen. So I'll try to be brief and short. I just want to give you a sense of what I see is going on around the world in this particular space. And I choose between going the gadget route and the principle route. I could entertain you with smart city gadgets an afternoon if you were interested in it. But end of the day, that's just technology. It isn't really what this is about, right? So I'm going to try to go the principle route instead and talk about some of the whys and some of the hows in actually getting there, because there is no way in creating a smart city unless there is a shared sense of making it happen and a good way of operationalizing that model. But let's take a step back. We all know that the things are sort of changing in the world, right? This is a chart just taking a look at the fertility rates in different parts of the globe. And while we might not be surprised to see that we probably around here have 2 kids a family, something like that, we might think that that wasn't the case in places like Asia, but it is. It's still not the case in places like Africa, though. So just looking at the fertility, you can see that it's falling rapidly. It's going to converge around two kids a family. If you combine this with this life expectancy projection, which shows that we are actually getting older, hopefully happier as well, not necessarily in some cases, but in most cases, I hope. If you combine these 2 things, you're going to see a scenario where we're actually going to be quite a lot more people on this earth over the next coming 30 years, 1.5 billion, give and take. And guess where these people are going to reside? They're going to live in cities. They're all going to be in cities, almost all of them, because that's a pull. And not necessarily Europe, we are detracting slightly, but elsewhere. So this does affect us. And I couldn't help just to show this. It sort of shows somehow the exponentiality of what we are going through. You can see, we start way back in time here, for those of you who can see from way back in the room. And we can see cities popping up, starting in the Mesopotamian Delta, moving out, branching into China, sort of India, and slowly but surely we are expanding our footprint across the globe, right? This is a fairly slow, easy process. Nothing very exciting is happening. Well, it could be fun for the people who were there, I suppose, but it isn't intriguing. Well, around 0 BC, stuff happens, definitely. But we still keep this sort of slow pace of how we are evolving as a species around the globe. However, things heat up. As we see, things are heating up quite fast, right? Things are happening. We are, in fact, forming settlements almost all around the world. And the pace of this growth towards the end of this cycle, the closer we get to today, it is not just, well, you can ask yourself, is this really a good thing or is it a bad thing? It really doesn't matter. It is happening. So nation states can do some things about these issues that this creates, but it's clear to me that cities are the places where you can actually make most changes happen in order to sort of tackle the problems that gives rise to these things. So why are smart cities important on a larger scale? It's related to that previous picture. Because if you look at it, if you back up just a few years, most of us lived on the countryside. 70% of us lived in a rural area. Roughly 2007, 2008, it was a 50-50 scenario. We were sort of both living in cities and the countryside. And in just a few years, we are going to be almost all of us living in cities. So there's no question about the fact that the big cities in the world have a huge, awesome responsibility to take a leading role in actually making this a habitable environment also after we are gone. And part of it goes back to smart city as well. So looking at cities, you have 2 kinds of cities around. You have the cities that lose people and the cities that gain people. And it's more a sort of a question of how rapid this is happening. For the cities that gain people on a daily basis, you are faced with challenges like this. You are faced with pollution, waste. You're faced with congestion. You're faced with inequalities. You're faced with all sorts of challenges that needs to be addressed on a political and many different levels of these cities. What is equally true, though, is cities, that's a place where ecosystems collide. You have an ecosystem for health. You have an ecosystem for transport. You have an ecosystem for pensions. You have an ecosystem for practically every aspect of human endeavor. In a smart city, these ecosystems start working together in much more meaningful ways. We break barriers between these ecosystems down. The same goes for, all across the city, not just in City Hall, but also in City Hall. It won't be about having just one department responsible for this, another department responsible for that, and so on and so forth, living in individual empires. All these walls are about to be torn down in real smart cities. Because that's the only way we can liberate the data that can make us wiser and make us make better decisions. So what is a smart city? Anybody knows? I think we all have our own definitions of what a smart city is. And I'm sure you have it here in Belfast as well. My personal definition is close to this one. I view a smart city as a city that exploits the transformative powers of technology and data to actually benefit its citizens, all its residents really, its businesses, and the city itself. So the trick is not focus on the technology side. Far too many people do that today. The trick is to focus on the use of it, the liberation of data. How can you create somebody mentioned the larger pie, and how can we all innovate on top of that? This is also where we can ask ourselves a question: how a smart city can support the Belfast agenda. And there are, of course, many, many things. I've just picked a few of them. I think that the team represented by Deborah has an opportunity to figure out what it is that you can contribute with from the private sector. There's a lot of things that cities are good for. One of the things that cities traditionally don't do well is designing around the citizen. It's usually the city provides a service, and you plaster on some sort of a web interface to it. Turning it around, everything should really be designed around me living in the city. And what can you do to help there? There are other aspects. People in this room, there is no way that cities are going to be successfully executing these smart city strategies as they are being devised by a small group behind closed. That wasn't the case here. Sometimes it happens. You get a piece of paper, a strategy document, and everything else. And then nothing happens. Why? Because you don't empower the people. You don't bring the people along on the journey that you set out to take. And that's why I'm so encouraged by the way you're doing it here in Belfast. From the political side, which is actually quite uncommon, and I'm almost, am I allowed to say it, almost surprised that you managed to do it here in Belfast, right? It's impressive. It's impressive. All the way down to actually establishing the rule book, as it were, on how to get there. Then when you bring the funding into play as well, we have an opportunity of creating something that's much, much, much bigger than just the foundations of a smart city. And this goes back to enabling the community around, who are represented in this room. You all have a role to play when it comes to connecting into this ecosystem. In the forum, we reviewed the concept of the platform business model, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, in the private sector, and we tried to apply it to cities. And we came up with a set of really easy-to-use guidelines around that. But the trick here is just to separate some of the concerns, because we all know private business needs to make money, city needs to accomplish a mission, but if we can all put this on a common platform, as it were, we are going to liberate so much data that can then be used for other creative purposes we can only dream about today. And thirdly, talent is needed. It's probably one of the underestimated aspects of succeeding with this, because we all think we have something to contribute with, but as it turns out, we all have to upskill, we all have to learn new things, and we have to do it pretty fast. I just came from China, as you mentioned, Lord Mayor, just yesterday, together with Erin from Future Cities Catapult to join me down there. And I think we were, as always in China, you're amazed by the pace that they have in executing on something. Last year they had just a few million bicycles in one place. Suddenly it's 20 million. Last year they had a few doctors connected to an e-health system. Suddenly it's 300,000 doctors. And you realize that while we are good in having an informed debate in our Western societies, we are not so good at actually making things happen quickly. We seem to debate and debate and debate. So I say, the time for debate in Belfast is, when it comes to the principles, largely over. It's more time to execute. And that's why I think the team that Deborah leads will be so important in getting this done. She's in a very interesting position between yourselves and between the city. And she will have some tough and exciting years ahead of her, I'm sure. However, the sort of PPP model that we know about needs to be added. We need to remember that this is done for the people, for the citizen, for the residents. So we prefer to think about it as a 4P model. And it will also require, as was mentioned earlier, some new, highly more innovative ways of procuring or investing in these things. It could be that some of the larger companies in this room will be co-investing with the city in initiatives, but also getting great returns at the end of it when we can prove an outcome. It could be that there will be more targeted challenges that we will talk about later in the session today. There's also going to be a lot of disruption, a lot of stuff we don't know about. In a symposium just the other week, we highlighted a few of them. I stole a slide from a friend at IBM that just displays some of how you connect things through artificial intelligence. It's absolutely going to be a game changer when it comes to how you provide city services and how the city will be able to have a one-to-one relationship with me as a resident. We talk about IoT. It's being rolled out as we speak, almost left, right, and center. And it's going to be impactful in ways we can't yet imagine. We talk about other things, cloud, blockchain, and of course, we need to figure out how to where these things fit in our wider city strategy. But it's not all for evil. We tend to think about sometimes the Maslow hierarchy of needs as a pretty good way of just figuring out, where are we now? And I guess we all move up and down in this Maslow hierarchy need depending on our personal life or our job life, I suppose. If we think about this in a city context instead, this is a view. Oh, I'm sorry, it's such a small screen over there, but it's underpinned by all the things that exist in the city, all the physical aspects and all the physical assets that are turned digital. But then it's coming together on let's call it an ICT technology layer, and eventually we have it in the middle of this platform on a data layer. This is where most cities are today. They have an open data platform that provides insights into certain aspects of city life. Not many cities have passed beyond that level, though. There are a few around. If you want to get higher up here, then you need to think about ecosystems. You need to think about curating these ecosystems. You need to think about how you and you can actually become successful participants in that ecosystem. And you need to make it happen. And creating an ecosystem I guess it's one of those things you really can't do it alone. You have to be joined by people in doing it. Like-minded people who also want to succeed in creating an ecosystem, right? And it helps if you have a shared common purpose in doing so. So in this case, the shared common purpose is actually making Belfast fit for the future, right? That's the shared common purpose we have. And we do it while making some money doing it, which is not wrong. It's just good. So there's a maturity that needs to happen in the city to get there. And considering, one shouldn't expect everything from day one, but it should be pragmatic, it should be focused on citizen needs, and all those type of things. So it needs to follow that sort of core set of principles if this is going to take off and actually become a virtuous cycle in the end. And we've, from the forum, also supported actually by Future City Catapult, as late as last week, we published a manifesto to do that, be clear on that vision alignment, what it actually means. What are we building this for? Why are we doing it? How are we doing it? What are the principles involved? Feel free to take a look at it online if you're interested. So this vision alignment, it is part of the Belfast Smart City framework already as it happens, because you have already thought about some of those key principles in there. And the question becomes, how can we make this transformation happen? How will it be done? The city will invest a number of different challenges and a number of sort of different vehicles to make it easier. But end of the day, and this is echoed with all cities I worked with, end of the day, it needs to be the community of people who actually see the value in it for themselves. Because if there is no value in it, these initiatives will die after that initial seed funding is gone. So we need to find the model that can sustain, that can actually grow into a virtuous circle. And that virtuous circle is based on availability of data, on sharing a set of core principles in how this is being shared, and actually being able to access each other's repositories of knowledge, networking across borders, breaking down barriers. It's only then when we can get to this place of innovation that drives the smart city forward. And those set of principles are actually far more important than talking about, let's say, intelligent garbage bins or maybe smart transport solutions. All those things are manifestations of following that sort of same strain of core principles in the end. You do need those, however. You do need a set of projects to actually execute on. That becomes a real important part of strategy. We also talked this morning in an early breakfast about this notion of businesses coming together with the city to co-invest in these projects. It doesn't have to be just the city paying for something on a transactional basis as we are used to. It could be a co-funded project that leads to an outcome and then leads to a reward at the end of and when having reached that outcome. So it's a little bit about challenging the way we think about the city. The cities today are becoming smarter, also internally. It's not just handing out money anymore, right? But they do love help in liberating assets, liberating funds to actually do these things. So one has to be imaginative in seeing the opportunity that's actually around the corner. These are the priorities that were mentioned for Belfast: growing the economy, living here, and I mean by living here I mean making it a very pleasant place to be and also work and learn, and of course develop the city. So from a digital perspective, I think about it as you have a digital delivery side of it, which is, right, how can we help the city become leaner and meaner? How can we reinvent the business models, the way we do things? How can we turn it around and actually use digital technologies in the right ways? Huge opportunities to liberate funds in all cities around the world in this one dimension. The other dimension is digital enablement. How can the city enable the business community to achieve more? How can it pull together these different things? And how can it actually create opportunity that we can all benefit from in the end? So how can I become a part of these ecosystems? Well, I'd say the first thing is to talk to the people tasked at making it happen and come up with your ideas on how to make this work. The city doesn't have a crystal ball where it knows where it's. No city has, but it can cleverly choose between options that are good for us all. So, and I assume that will be part of the challenge that Deborah has to sort of tackle after today. But it's rare to see this level of alignment in an initial sort of bid for developing a smart city, and I think you have a good starting point. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy, though, because there are lots of tricky parts in this, but it does mean that you have a baseline for it. And with that, I just want to say thanks for having me here, and wishing you all the best of luck in getting down this journey.
Hello, my name is Ronan Craig, and I'm the Deputy Chief Executive and Director of Finance and Resources in the Council. So the Smart Belfast framework itself is a document. It's just a bit of paper. So our job is to make this real. So our politicians have shown great leadership and all-party agreement around the framework. So in my experience, to make this real, like our £300 million investment programme, you need leadership, money, people, and partnerships. And our politicians have shown very strong leadership. They have put in a smart city team led by Deborah, also supported by our digital services team around the technology, and they have put significant funding in place. And that's not an easy choice for politicians, because there's conflicts all over the place in terms of where that money should go. So it's a very strong, brave decision to put money into the Smart Belfast framework. So one of the big things that the Council can bring to the fore is money. Not our own, but other people's. So we are developing our expertise. We're becoming really good at it in terms of how we bring in money from other funders, particularly other parts of the UK government. So we have, could you flick on? Sorry, he was asleep. So we're putting in a £30 million bid for a full fibre network for the city. Paul Gribbon over here, Digital Services, is leading on that. We have an expression of interest, hopefully based on our experience of the Super Connected project, which I'm sure some of you were involved in. We will be successful in that bid. And one of the things we want to talk to you about is how, if we're successful, we can exploit that technology. We are working with the University of Ulster and InvestNI around an IoT competition, which will put in a low-powered WAN. That sounds if I know what it is, but for sensor technology. So then that will be, again, critical in terms of how we exploit that across the city. One of the most exciting parts, we are going, hopefully, to have an immersive tech hub in the city, one of 3 across the UK. The councillors on Friday agreed to put significant capital investment into a building to kit out a tech hub. That is going to be in partnership with the Digital Catapult, along with the Department of the Economy. And one of the things we'd really encourage is for SMEs to make full use of that. Hopefully, Deborah, when are we talking about? November? Hopefully that will open. We are also going to run a lot more of these SBRI challenges. And SBRI is really important for us. We were talking earlier on about innovation, and the public sector would create all these rules around procurement, and then we've developed really innovative ways to get around them. And SBRI is an innovative way of how we procure, but also how we develop relationships with SMEs. But the biggest area of funding is we're working with Westminster and the executive around a deal for what's called a city deal. We're looking for between 700 and £1 billion of funding to come into the city. A significant element of that, hopefully 200 to 300 million pounds, will be around the digital economy. So we want to work with yourselves, not just around what you would spend the money on, because we need to find ways for this to become sustainable investment in the city. So it's not about handing out grants, it's about defining and working on different relationships between ourselves, central government and the private sector that can deliver both better outcomes for the citizens, but also create employment and provide sustainable finance. And the key for us in this is this isn't a whim. We're not doing it for the crack. It's about creating jobs in the city and about improving lives for people in the city. And that's what our politicians are about. So this city deal is really, really important for the future, for the city. It gives us real scale. We had a breakfast meeting this morning, and we will be engaging with the whole of the sector. We have about 12 months to put this together. So it's a real hard piece of work. So we will, with Deborah's team, want to establish a different range of networks where we can discuss the different elements of that deal. So it's really important for us that this is taken forward in the right way. And the start of that now is this challenge, the Challenge Fund, why you're all here. So Deborah, are we going to go straight into the fund now? Oh, we're going to have a short break, and then we will get into the detail. Thanks very much.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you all enjoyed that networking opportunity. There will be more of that when we finish this morning. First of all, I'd like to say a very well done to Ciara and the team, because that video was absolutely amazing and it actually made me very proud to be part of this city. So well done to you and the team, because it was excellent, and we will definitely be using that with our further discussions with European partners. So I am delighted to be here today. My name is Linda Jemison. I'm the Collaborative Network Manager in Invest NI. And I'm delighted to be here on behalf of Invest NI and in partnership with Belfast City Council to actually launch today the Smart Belfast, this is one hard to say, Smart Belfast Collaborative Challenge. And I think for me, on reflection of having listened to a lot of the presentations today, we have talked a lot about the word smart. We've heard smart city, we've heard the word about smart framework, but what really I want to talk about for a few minutes is actually smart collaboration. It is important that we get this right. So from a very recent publication authored by a girl called Heidi Gardner, who's actually an ex-consultant from the McKinsey Group and is now a professor at Harvard Business School. The evidence that she has indicated actually demonstrates that actually if you collaborate in a smart way, as a company, you're definitely more inclined to actually increase your margins. You're definitely going to inspire greater client loyalty, and you will also attract and retain the best talent within your business, improve your competitive edge, and more importantly, work across then those multifunctional boundaries, which is ever increasingly getting more important. But closer to home, our evidence also shows that as the challenges that we face are becoming more and more complex, which you all know, they are requiring a multifunctional team approach to provide solutions, enabling businesses to pursue those commercial ventures that would previously have been deemed absolutely impossible. Invest NI have supported some 82 projects, if not more, over the past lot of years, and they have varied in size and complexity. And I know today a lot of our collaborators from those networks are here as well. But they have varied in complexity and size. So some collaborative groups have had 4, some have had 15, and some have had up to 75 companies. But they have enabled companies to actually gain commercial benefit. So some have enabled them to get sales in excess of 15 million, but they've also enabled as well things to be inform infrastructure, engage and inform curriculum changes, and also look at attracting and shaping the next level of skills that are coming through for the next generation. So we know from the evidence that we have that collaboration is a way to go in addressing some of the things that you're going to be talking about later on today. So therefore, we would actually encourage our SMEs to collaborate with each other to help Belfast City Council on its journey and taking this smart city agenda from being a vision to a reality. And in doing so, embed new models of cooperation and engagement that will really enable some tangible difference to the city and its citizens, which we've heard so much about as well. Most importantly for us as well, enable profitability and competitiveness for you as the participating companies. So in terms of today, as I said, I'm delighted that we're obviously going live now with the call. So we are hoping that as a result of this that we will be able to provide support for 8 successful projects of up to £25,000 initially to actually look at and enable them to collectively engage a facilitator or consultant to work out and to scope and define the commercial opportunities that align to the 5 challenge areas: the tourism, healthcare, circular economy, smart building and asset management and transport. And I know you're going to hear a lot more about those directly after me in this session. So our application forms and background information on each of the challenges are available and should be available as of now. So please don't all rush at once to go on to the website in a minute, but hopefully. But in terms of the actual timeline and timescales then that we're operating to, so we've launched today. We are hoping that the applications then that we will receive closing date by actual 6th of November. Those successful applications will be notified on the 27th of November, and that we're hoping then that immediately after that, if not shortly after that, that you will then be able to start and work on your projects. But I have a caveat there, depending on the complexity of those networks, depending on the readiness of those networks, there may be some lag. So we would hope that whatever projects we've got, they will have all started by the latest in February, and that's the latest, so we're hoping that that'll be the case. In terms of the actual application requirements, we really only need a minimum of 4 Northern Ireland companies. That's the bare minimum that we would ask for, and they must be SMEs. The 4 Northern Ireland companies must be SMEs. One of those who actually makes the application on behalf of that network must be an investor in an client company. But we would actively encourage you to engage both academia and other stakeholders. We heard Carl talking earlier about the fact that you need all the partners on board. It is a true collaboration, and I think this is actually demonstrating today that we are working in partnership with all our stakeholders to actually enable you to take advantage of the collaboration that's already underway. So, apart from the 4 Northern Ireland companies, we would also actively encourage you to bring people in from outside Northern Ireland into your collaboration as well, because we realise that all the knowledge may not necessarily be available in Northern Ireland to help address some of these challenges, but that choice will be up to you. So this is an opportunity to help Belfast City Council accelerate the Smart City agenda. But we recognise that, that knowledge can come from anywhere, and that's why we're delighted that we have already the collaborations on board with the stakeholders in relation to each of those challenge areas. We also recognise that not all collaboration is smart. So we would definitely encourage you to do it right from the very beginning. Only collaborate if you cannot tackle the challenge or develop the opportunity on your own. Only collaborate if you truly trust those partners that you have got. Only collaborate if you are comfortable with sharing the risk. And only collaborate if you are definitely committed to sharing whatever the reward is. That is quite critical. So in terms of the application process, just quickly I want to let you know as well that it will be assessed, each application will be assessed from cross-functional teams, so comprising of staff from Invest NI, Belfast City Council and each of the challenge owners as well. So all the applications will be looked at from a collaborative team. They will be assessed using 10 criteria, and those are the 10 criteria that we have listed on the board. You can read those for yourselves. I would urge you to be smart about why you are seeking the £25,000 support. And in completing your application, we would ask you as well to be explicit in and about the area or areas that you are wishing to focus on. Provide background context as to why you need to work on the project collaboratively, explaining how it is innovative, and indicate how you intend to go about solving the problem or pain experienced by the Council. And believe you me, for clients to actually have direct access to a customer who has lots of pains is a great opportunity at this stage. So bear in mind that collaboration will enable you to leverage that highly specialised professional expert pool from multiple businesses and from the stakeholders, and will, I hope, help you to identify the Smart City business model options by developing a collective evidence base on the size and the scale of the commercial opportunity, as well as facilitating meaningful conversations as well with those policy providers and future funders that may be required in order to take you on the journey further. We recognise as well that collaboration and open innovation will require sharing of data, both inside and outside your current ecosystems, and Carl has referred to those. The sharing of data doesn't always come naturally, especially to the public and private sector in Northern Ireland, but I'm delighted even today to hear in the language that we're using that that has actually moved and is changing. I think Carl referred to it, the fact as well about, we're liberating the fact of using the data and liberating the fact of being able to apply technology. But I'm also delighted as well that some of my colleagues here, and Robert Hill from, Robert, where are you? Hand up. as well has also said to me at the interval, can you please tell people as well that we've got some data sets between Airbus and InvestNI from the Space Challenge that's available. So I know there's going to be more of that will happen at the networking stage, but there are people here that are willing and eager to allow you to avail of some of those data sets already. You will, if successful with your application, be able to speak then directly to that customer and understand the pain that they are currently experiencing. And in doing so, it will enable you to identify ways in which you can collaborate to combine capabilities to come up with those joint solutions. Through such smart collaboration, you will be able to leverage that collective knowledge to scope out and define those new business models which are so critical, obtain insights to evaluate if that unmet need is solvable, and more importantly, if it actually provides you with a commercial opportunity that you can collectively tackle. Innovation and collaboration to help solve the Belfast City Smart City challenges will require collaboration, and therefore we are really excited today to launch the call and do invite you and our fellow collaborators to actually avail of this unique opportunity. I think there's so much that could be discussed. So there's some of my team are in the room today. So should you wish to avail of this and want to pursue potential applications, a couple of my colleagues are in the room today and my team as well. So I've got Joanne McMullen, who's been heavily involved with this project, who's sitting in the second row, and Eugene Heaney and Claire as well. So there's 3 of my colleagues are here if you wish to speak to them. And there are some other InvestNI colleagues here that are about as well that you can talk to, I think with Pat Doyle and Richard Peelan as well. So there's other colleagues here as well. So on behalf of our fellow collaborators, I wish to thank you and the Belfast City team and our stakeholders for helping bring this exciting opportunity to our local business. But finally, before we go, one of the things I would like you to do was that Carl mentioned that the Internet of Things will impact on us in so many ways yet to be unimagined. And Deborah and Nuala, also the Lord Mayor, also mentioned 2 critical dates, 2021 and 2035. Can I ask you just for a minute to close your eyes? All of you just close your eyes, and I'm asking you this question. What ecosystems will you have been responsible for creating? And how agile will you have been in order to create those? Just bear in mind those 2 dates, and hopefully you will all be able to play an important role in actually developing a future and a smart city future for everybody. I'm delighted now to actually pass over to Erin Walsh. Erin is head of the city strategies, and she is a trusted business partner from Belfast City Council. Thank you, Erin.
Thank you, Linda, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So we've heard about the ambition and the commitment of the City Council. We've heard about the level of investment from InvestNI. We're also going to hear from our challenge owners. And I think Carl made a very good summary point. The debate is done. Ronan echoed that, make it happen. So the debate is done. Time is now for execution. And that is why you are in the room, because you are the people that is going to execute this vision. So we're going to have a very brief overview from each of our challenge owners, and then we want to hear from yourselves, because this is where the real discussion happens and questions are asked. So I'm going to draw your attention to this here, Slido. This may be new for some of you. I take it we all have a phone in the audience. Yeah. Okay, can I ask you to please pick it up right now and put in www.slido.com, and if you use this reference, the hashtag R861. And that's going to bring you into an interface where we can start to ask questions on today's what we've heard today, and also from the challenge owners. Okay, so I'll give you a moment just to load that up. And how this works is, you pose a question, it will come onto the screen behind us, because we've quite a big room here today, and this lets us start to see the key questions. If one of your fellow members in the audience asks a question you think, actually, I really want to know the answer to that, hit it, make a vote for it, and my colleague here, Paul, will mediate that, and it'll start to come to the top of our list. So we get to the critical questions. We also have a roving mic, so if somebody wants to ask something in a bit more detail or wants to make a further point, please put up your hand and we'll bring the microphone over and you can ask that question. So, as we move through, I would like to introduce our 5 panel members. It is starting with Dave Vincent from Tourism Northern Ireland. Dave is the challenge owner for the Tourism Challenge. We then have Andrew Steeson from Belfast City Council, who is our challenge owner for health. We also have Marcus Campbell from Belfast City Council, the challenge owner for circular economy. And we have David Logan, also from Belfast City Council, the challenge owner for managing the public estate. And finally, we have Moira Doherty with Belfast City Council, challenge owner for transport. So we're going to start with Dave. And Dave's going to give us an insight to the challenge, just that high-level overview, and we'll move through each of the panel members. So Dave, if you'd like to just talk us through your key challenge.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to come here this morning and chat you through what the Tourism Challenge looks like. I'm not going to repeat what's in the material in front of you. I'm going to try and call out some themes. I guess sitting in the audience so far this morning, it's been very encouraging to hear some words that reinforce, hopefully, what's already in the material in front of you. I'm going to call them out now. So we talk about empowering. I'm going to be slightly controversial and say that I'm going to talk about visitors instead of citizens or people who live here. But actually, I'm as interested in the impact that delivering an improved visitor experience has on our citizens and on our businesses as I am on the visitor experience, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But also for the open data people that are here, I'm really interested to hear about the journey from static to real-time open data. And that's part of what we're talking about in terms of this challenge. As I chat through the journey that we've been on as a collaborative team, working with Belfast City Council, with Visit Belfast, Tourism and I, and other stakeholders, the biggest benefit we've had so far is actually sharing what we're all up to ourselves, understanding the data that we have access to, understanding the programs we've already got in train, and starting to try and collaborate a bit more openly, a bit more transparently, share data, share learnings. But I guess for this audience, also aggregate some of the conversations that we're having. So I'm very conscious we're having lots of individual conversations with SMEs, talking about some of our challenges, talking about individual solutions, and we're trying to aggregate some of those conversations into collaborative solutions that allow you to be involved, that allow us to address wider issues just than a specific organisation. So that collaboration, the aggregation piece has been really interesting. The other themes for us are around transparency. So a real challenge for me and my organisation to be transparent about the data I have, and a challenge to all of the stakeholder organisations. You'll see called out in the material our willingness to share data. That's easy to say. It's much more difficult to deliver, and we're on the journey with you, but keen to create what's there, but also to explore ways of creating new data sets. So people will have heard me talk a lot about the data vacuum, about the fact that we understand a lot about our visitors before they come and when they go away because they're online, but our ability to interact with them, to impact their behaviours while they're in country is actually very limited. And that's what we're looking to the collaborators in this room to help us understand what ways can we use technology. Is there infrastructure we need to invest in? Are there data sets out there we don't know? How do we interact with people? How do we understand their behaviours first? Because that will help us to plan and drive policy. But also then, how do we start to impact that behaviour? Show our industry, our tourism industry, how they can interact with tourists in a different way and start to drive different commercial models, different business models. And that's part of the challenge. It's not just about the technology. It's about showing our industry what are the alternative commercial models, what do the operating models need to look like underneath. And that's what we're really excited about engaging with the guys here. Not just about the data, about what we can do with the data and asking different questions and leading our industry in a different way to create new business models.
Brilliant. Thank you, Dave. I think that point about it's not just about the data, but what we can do with it, really poignant, and I think that'll go across all 5 challenges. Fabulous. So Andrew, if you'd like to talk us through the health side of the challenge.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for your time. I want you to imagine for a second that I'm your GP and that I'm going to prescribe you a treatment. And I'm going to tell you that if you take this treatment 3 to 4 times a week, it'll reduce your risk of breast cancer by 1/5. It'll reduce your risk of colon cancer by 1/3, of heart disease by 1/3, and of type 2 diabetes by 1/2. You'd probably take it, wouldn't you? If I told you that that treatment would help contribute to saving to the UK health sector of £1.2 billion a year, to the wider UK economy of £1.5 billion a year, you'd probably think it was a good investment, wouldn't you? Unfortunately, I'm not a GP, and this is a tic-tac, but there is something that provides you with those benefits. And if you do it 3 to 4 times a week, you'll see the health benefits, and our wider economy and health sector would see the financial returns as well. And it's called being physically active. Despite knowing this, and despite communicating this message for decades, despite the investment we've put in to outstanding facilities, despite the investment we've made in programs, world-class programs to support people to become more physically active, currently in Belfast, only 1 in 2 people do any physical activity in a week. Not even physical activity to derive health benefits, any physical activity in a week. If we look at areas of high disadvantage, where you're 3 to 4 times at greater risk of developing those conditions, only 1 in 4 does any type of physical activity. This is our challenge. We have the evidence, we have the means, but for some reason we're not making the connection with the individuals, and we need to understand how we better do that. How do we better understand what prevents people from taking part in physical activity? How do we better understand what enables people to be more physically active? And how do we better understand what motivates people to stay active? In short, we need your expertise and your help to unlock the potential that technology has to change people's behaviours, make them more active, and support them to live longer, healthier lives. Thank you.
Brilliant. Andrew, thank you very much. I must say that was a pretty nice call to action, because they are hard numbers to argue with. So absolutely, I think if there's anyone from the health side and you have an interest, you cannot, come forward, because this is definitely something that there's support needed with. So now we're going to hear from Marcus Campbell from Belfast City Council. And Marcus is the challenge owner for circular economy.
Morning. I'm in the happy position of getting the feedback that nobody understands what the circular economy is. So I'm going to give you some context first, and then we'll focus in on what the actual challenge is that we're looking for you to help us with. So Resourceful Belfast is the name of our circular economy strategy, and it boils down to 4 strands, really. Very simply, if we do the right things, that's interventions and support in the right places, sweet spots we believe exist in the local economy. To make the circular economy happen, we can generate significant benefits for the city. And that's okay saying that, but those 4 lines really raise 4 questions. And the first one is, what is the circular economy? So to explain that, we'll go to the kind of prevailing economic model, which can be described as linear. And so we take stuff from the ground, or we import it from other places. We make things, we use them, and we throw them away. And that has led to a really dysfunctional system and really unsustainable patterns of consumption and production and waste. So, for example, one study showed that 40% of goods put in the market, that's not just 40% of stuff extracted from the ground, but 40% of goods put on the market in Europe end up as waste within a year. That's a whole lot of stuff that we obviously didn't need. And it's a whole lot of value that we're throwing away. So plastic alone, every year we lose or we leak about $100 billion worth of plastic from the global economy. That's $100 billion worth of stuff being thrown away. And a lot of that ends up causing problems elsewhere. And we heard the announcement this morning from Wetherspoons, not going to provide plastic straws anymore because of the impact of them. In Northern Ireland, and I think this is a really conservative estimate, but we spend about £200 million every year just dealing with stuff that we've thrown away. So that's spending money on stuff that we no longer want. And a lot of that is tax. Paying tax on stuff we don't want, it doesn't make any sense. So I'm hoping that you can see this is just not an environmental issue, it's also an economic issue. There's an obvious link to resource security and to supply chain management. I mean, how do we make our supplies last? How do we make the best use of what we do have? But it also is a link to other things, like how do we design products? What do we make them from? How do we look after them once they're out there? Do we want to lose them or do we want them back? So what do we do with them once we're finished with them? So in contrast to the linear economy, a circular economy really is one, it's an economic system that considers all of that, and it's designed at a systems level to keep goods and materials in circulation, to get the most use out of them and get the best value out of them. And it's a system that preserves our natural capital and the resources that we have. It's a really exciting field of work that's set to grow, and it's being adopted and supported by household names like Google and Cisco and Nike and people like that. And what are the benefits of this? Well, I think the kind of environmental benefits are obvious, but there's others as well. So it is more resource efficient. We're getting more use out of what we have. It's more resilient, it's more sustainable. But it generates new jobs, new businesses, new partnerships. It requires innovation in terms of new technologies, new business models, new skills. And studies are predicting that within Northern Ireland there'll be £7 million worth of savings to the economy and several thousand new net jobs available here. So we talked about doing the right things in the right places to make the circular economy happen to get benefits. So what are the right things? And those are things like training, investment, funding, policy changes, things like that. But the final line that I want to look at and what we need your help with really is, well, where are these right places to make the circular economy happen? Where are these sweet spots in the local economy that we can disrupt and we can change the system from a linear system to a circular system and get the benefits that we're talking about? And what we, I suppose, are looking to you to do is to model the existing system, help identify where those sweet spots lie, where are those real dysfunctional practices, where are the opportunities, where are the places that transitioning to circular economy practices or approaches will have the most effect. Where are the sweet spots that we should target to get the best mix of benefits for the city? At the minute, we're just coming across opportunities. So there are opportunities that we know of and that we're exploring. But really what we want to do is come up with a real, much more methodical, structured, systematic approach within the local economy so that we're finding all of the opportunities and not just the ones that we happen to stumble upon. So in the long term, we'd like to really come up with a heat map, I suppose, of all the sweet spots across all the sectors that we can go and then explore and change the practices. But for now, we've narrowed it down to the retail sector for the purposes of this challenge, and there's a number of reasons for that. As a whole, the retail sector has been identified as a sweet spot in itself for Northern Ireland. So changes in retail can have a wider influence upstream to how things are designed and how we import and procure, but also downstream into what consumers do and what they do with the products while they're using them and afterwards. And there are also willing partners and work ongoing in that sector already. So see it as an opportunity to have a huge impact in Belfast, and hope you'll come see us afterwards at the Circular Economy stand to find out more.
Brilliant. Thank you, Marcus. So that's looking for sweet spots within the retail economy. How can we address that? And I think that actually, and you outlined a lot of numbers there around what it is in terms of revenue to an economy, but I think when we look at our population increase and that wastage, we can't shy away from these things environmentally as well. So absolutely, brilliant. Thank you for that, Marcus. So now we're going to move on to David Logan, who's going to talk us through managing the public estate as our fourth challenge this morning.
Good morning, and thank you. Don't know about you, but all that talk about Tic Tacs and sweets has got me quite hungry. So if you want to bear with me a wee second, and we'll talk about the public estate challenge. There's three aspects to the public estate. It's not just about estate management, which is the management of our existing assets. It's also about facilities management, the maintenance of our existing assets, and also it's about capital projects where we're actually building new assets. And what we're looking for in terms of this challenge is, I suppose, better information management, looking for effective solutions in terms of knowing what we've got and being able to help us in day-to-day management. But not just that, it's also about helping us to make strategic decisions. It's about making sure that when we're coming up with building of new assets, that they're going to be what's needed and in the right location. So the first part of the challenge is dealing with that in terms of mapping. Now, we already have our assets mapped. Other public sector bodies already have their assets mapped as well. And it's about making sure that that information is available in kind of in a real time, so that whenever people are making decisions in terms of, for example, a new football pitch for active communities, we're making sure that we're not building that football pitch right beside somewhere where the Education Authority is just about to extend and build a football pitch beside a school. So it seems simple, but time and time again, it becomes a bit of an issue whenever we're dealing with things. And it's about, I suppose many people have talked about this collaboration and kind of distilling it down into just making sure that that information is there. And we talk about a lot in the public sector about a source of truth. And it's making sure we have that source of truth, even in terms of assets and mapping, so that decisions are made in the right way. And the second aspect is actually in relation to the maintenance itself. And again, like most public sector bodies, we all have asset management systems, or we have maintenance programs. Some of varying complexities, and some have been around for a while. And currently we're looking into a new asset management system. But what we really need to see is that information and how we can best use that to the guys on the ground, and also to the people who are maybe not as connected to the guys on the ground who are making those decisions. And I'm not saying that we're having a great problem with this at the minute. In fact, I think we're getting far better at that. But what we'd like to see is maybe to start off with benchmarking amongst the different public sectors, to see bodies, to see just exactly how people are doing it. And also, and the reason why we're excited about this is we have an idea in our head about what solutions could be, but as was talked about earlier in terms of the big presentation, is that we don't even know there's other solutions could be out there we don't even know aware of. So the exciting thing from our point of view is putting that challenge out there and seeing what people are going to come back with. So good luck.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, David. So it's leveraging data, existing data, for decision making, which is really key and critical. And I think that's something absolutely through the work that we did on the likes of Growth Planner. It's how do we use data with the end users so they can actually take action on it. So that's really tremendously helpful. So Moira Doherty, apologies Moira, I said you were with Belfast City Council earlier. I'm now going to correct that. Moira is Head of Transport with the Department of Infrastructure.
Thank you, Erin. And first of all, just to say, I felt very honoured to be an honorary member of Belfast City Council this morning. I'm quite happy with that, given that it, I think it kind of exemplifies the collaborative approach that we're trying to go for here. I'm Moira Doherty. I'm Director for Public Transport within the Department for Infrastructure, and absolutely delighted to be working with colleagues on this challenge. Essentially, the challenge as we framed it is very much in keeping with the ambitions that we have around the draft programme for government, and that's in two ways. On the one hand, this new outcomes approach that we're introducing at the minute is very much about thinking about population level impact, thinking about the outcome that we want to achieve, and how we do that is absolutely about looking through a different lens in order to come up with the interventions that we know will make the most difference. And we can only do that by working in a collaborative way with people across a variety of sectors. In terms of the meat of the challenge, again, we really hope that this will help us to achieve the ambitions that we have in the draft programme for government around the importance of connecting people and opportunities through our infrastructure. And specifically, one of the challenges that we have set is around increasing the numbers of people using public transport, walking and cycling. And most of us will be very familiar with all the evidence around the benefits that will derive from that in terms of activity and being healthier, in terms of the impact on our environment, and in terms of productivity. So that's at the population level, where over the past 10 years, we have around 25% of our journeys made by public transport, walking or cycling. We are, as a society, very, very wedded to the private car. at a city level, because we know Belfast as a major employment centre. What's good for Belfast is good for the region. Over 50% of the Belfast workforce use their car to get to work. And if I could take it down to the personal level, just to kind of exemplify it, you'll not be surprised that someone with a job title that involves public transport, most days I get the bus. Unfortunately, this morning I had to take my car because I need it for later on. I live 1.9 miles from my place of work, which is just across the way in Adelaide Street. And this morning I got into my car and I set off down the Ormer Road. I was surrounded by other people in their cars, just like me, one person. So even though we know that cars hold up to 5 people, most of us are travelling into work one by one. Just worth thinking about the efficiency of our road network. A bus can carry the equivalent of 55 cars, but takes up the space of 3 cars. So just even thinking about those numbers. So I sat there feeling pretty unhappy because I didn't really move. Couldn't really do anything, wasn't really anything fun to look at because I still had to, concentrate on what I was doing. And that 1.9 miles took me just shy of 1 hour. So I got into work feeling pretty grumpy, kind of worried because out of the corner of my eye I could see the little red light on my BlackBerry continuing to flash, which is not a good feeling. But in the interest of road safety, of course, I would never look at my phone when I'm driving. So compare that with yesterday morning when I cycled into work. I am lucky enough to live close to the towpath and close to nice, safe, separated cycle lanes. So I set off into work. It was a beautiful sunny day. Sailed in, able to take in my surroundings, listen to the bird song, say good morning to folk as I passed them, maybe even stop on the towpath for a few, Instagram-worthy pics, #smug, and then off I went into work feeling actually pretty energized and pretty good. And, my journey in and out of work yesterday, that was in total 40 minutes. So in and out yesterday, less than my journey in this morning in the car, plus I had 40 minutes exercise and a pretty nice experience. So what can we do to help make people make that shift? How can we help people to understand the benefits? How can we help people to see that actually joining up a journey in different ways, that it's not just a binary proposition, it's not just car or, but actually it could be both and. The fact that you could have a bit of walking, bit of cycling, bit of public transport, because all of those things, and I think both we can see the statistics at the population level, but even just at the personal level, what we could do there to make our people healthier, greener, more productive, and actually perhaps even happier. So really, really looking forward to hearing what the talent in the room is going to come up with.
Brilliant, thank you, Moira. I think your personal story really summarises that challenge nicely, and I think we like the #smug part of it, so really nice. Right, so now we're going to move into the questions from the audience. So if I can just kind of get a show of hands, who's on Slido, who's putting questions in? Brilliant, lovely. As this happens, you're going to see how it works more and more. Let me see, we're going to, okay, lovely. So we have here, so I'm going to have a look at this here. I'm seeing the second question is 21, so to me that straight away says there's a lot of people interested in this. Right, I think this might be a question for yourself, Linda. So the question we have is, do we have to be fined for companies, or can you apply independently and hope to be matched? So that's, do you have to come together as the consortium, or can you come into the challenge and be matched within it? That's the way I'm reading that. By the way, if I read a question and I don't get the essence of the point correct, put up your hand, don't let it go. Let's talk about it and understand it so we can ask it. Linda.
Okay, thank you very much for the question. That's really thrown me because our initial thought would be, yes, we would like initially applications from 4 companies. However, and my team will be screaming at me for this. However, that's not to say that if you have something that you particularly want to pursue, that we won't try and actually look at matching you in either with networks that we will know about or engaging you with other people. But our initial call, we would expect you to actually pursue and bring the minimum of 4 companies into the network.
All right, that answers that. Can I ask quickly, could we get that screen moved slightly so our colleagues here on the panel can start, so they're forewarned as such. We have a little bit of time to prep for that. Okay, we're going to go into our second question. This is from Phil Weir. Phil, whereabouts are you? Lovely, okay, smashing Phil. If I don't get this correct, you give me a shout out, okay. Phil's asking, are these funds compatible with international data accelerators, given local tech SMEs and data providers such as datapitch.eu? So you're looking for compatibility. I wonder, I don't know who to direct this to, so who may be better placed on this panel? Phil, I'm going to come back to you on that. Explain that a little bit more to us.
Thank you. So I suppose there's a few funding mechanisms I'm aware of that are maybe, for example, at an EU level, and they will look at trying to fund projects that involve data providers and tech SMEs that might be wanting to work with them. And I guess some of the funding that's been mentioned this morning is that something that those would work fine together, that they're kind of orthogonal, or is there anything we need to bear in mind if we're putting in? So, for example, I mentioned datapitch.eu because I'm aware their deadlines are coming up. So,
we also have an answer to that question from the audience, I believe. But Linda, did you want to make a point on it first, and we'll pass
The only
to
thing
Jarmo.
I'd say is the funding that we're providing towards the collaborative is the seed funding to actually, which probably will enable you to identify other funding opportunities. It's not the only funding, so it's just the seed to get you going to identify opportunities. But I think some of the pass that over. Perfect, Jarmo.
Yes, hi, Jarmo Eskelinen, Futurities Catapult. The funding model which we are using is, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think I am, is SBRI funding, which is basically funding, innovative procurement funding, challenge-based funding, which funds the innovation process for the company. It's a public procurement process fundamentally. So it is completely compatible with any other mechanisms you are using. For example, it's not state aid in any way, shape, or form. So I think it's a good match to which you can combine with other sources. Quite well tested and tried around the UK. Far too little elsewhere in Europe. One of the things in which we lead here.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Jarmo. So I think that the take home on that is, yes, it is compatible. So that's pretty positive. The next question I want to take, and I think this is a really good one, actually, and I saw another question flash up and then it disappeared again, because I think this is getting a lot of hits. Can an online network be set up to help identify partners for the competition? So how can you start to see who else is in your space as a collaborator? This is a dynamite question, and this is actually exactly what this whole movement is about, identifying those other movers. So I think I'm going to ask Deborah on that answer, because I know as part of this here, you'll have seen the www.belfastcity/Smart Cities page, where there is we're asking, or the council is asking people to identify their key skill sets. So maybe building on that, perhaps around this network.
Yes, so I mean that is a really different take on the whole collaborative network challenge. But yes, anywhere where we can try and bring networks together and other ideas for actually bringing networks together and supporting networks coming together to work on collaborative challenges would be accepted.
Brilliant.
Just another comment from Mark and the team.
I just maybe add to that, we've created an online forum on the Smarter Cities webpage where you can register your interest across multiple challenges, and you can also register areas that your company maybe has capabilities in or would like to develop those skills. Ultimately, we'll publish those and share those with everyone who attended today in a capability pack.
So you have that online forum. Can I make a suggestion? You've all taken 2 hours out of your morning this morning. So I think it's safe to say there's people in this room who are open to these challenges. So as a suggestion, I would suggest anyone at the end of it, we've got different stations to talk through the challenges. But if anybody wants to kind of talk about collaboration, I think we pick a space in the room, perhaps right here, and you can meet and greet if you kind of have an idea that you want to engage with others. Just as a suggestion, not to leave this space without having that conversation. The next question, I think we will ask our challenge owners. So perhaps anybody that feels that they're well placed to answer this here, please do. Do potential collaborative networks have access to the council to define their proposition? So a starter for 10. Dave.
This is an easy one, yes. That's part of the brief, that we don't want just pitches coming in. We want to work with you and help you shape, provide you with access to the data, with access to the people and the subject matter experts. So keen to work and be part of the networks as well.
Okay. Is that a fair representation, or, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to co-design principles. You know, this is something, we have challenges here that we're sharing with you, and we want to then share in how we work up a solution using co-design as the ethos behind that, so very much so.
Thank you for that, Andrew. All right, the next question I might take with that, there was a question there, Paul, a moment ago around data, and I was going to pick up on that next, because I think that comes quite nicely with that question we just had. Is it gone? It's gone off our board just for the moment. It might come back up. Okay, we'll go to the top one again. If you are not an SME and have an idea that connects a cluster of businesses, how do you get involved? So if you're not an SME, but you have a good idea, there's a cluster of businesses, how can you get involved? Linda, this might be one for you.
Okay, well, the two things, I suppose. One is, I would suggest we pick up on the comment today about if you're here now in the room and you have an idea, and whether you want to write whatever relevant challenge it is on that piece of paper and hold it up to see anybody else that wants to come to have the conversation with you, but also pick up with my team that are here today. And following that, you can speak to any of the challenge owners or ourselves after today as well, in terms of maybe exploring how that might even be developed, but definitely pick up with my team.
Lovely. Okay, perfect. Moira, I think we have a question here for yourself. It's from Martin. Martin, let's see where you are. Lovely. Okay. Seems like a lot of the questions are coming from those two particular seats. Right. So Martin wants to know, is the Department for Infrastructure opening up its traffic data for analysis? Can the traffic counters stream their data in real time? Currently not available. Anything else you want to make on that point, Martin, before Moira answers?
Yeah, it's maybe just for all the panel is like, is it going to be easy for us to engage with you to open up your data? So say if I want a particular piece of data, do I have to go through an email address or do I go directly to you? And maybe you can be the facilitator to get it open if my product.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Well, across the whole of the NICS, the Northern Ireland Civil Service, there is a huge push now for us to be more open with our data. We absolutely recognise how important that is. Would also say that it's a culture shift. I have to be absolutely honest about that. It's a big culture shift for us, but at the same time, it's really, really important that we do it. I will undertake to leave today and speak to my colleagues on the road side of the department to see what the capacity is for sharing that information. I know that there is currently some data that is available, but I appreciate that the more you have, the better, and I will undertake to pick that up today.
And it's probably for the rest of the panel is, are you the key people to open up the data? So say, I know Tourism and I is really good at open their data, but I don't know about the others.
So I'll ask the other, if other panel members want to talk to that point. Yeah, because absolutely, that's one of the key things around these challenges.
Hello. So I think, yeah, I can't speak for everybody else, but I know that I certainly am not the key person to open up the data for this. But that'll be part of the responsibility. Somebody had asked a question about getting access to council to move this forward or to define the propositions. I see that as part of our role is to open those doors and talk to the people who do have the data and to make a way for that to happen.
I think also Deborah wants to make a point on that, so maybe I'll come over to you, Deborah, if that's okay as well, please.
Okay, just to say that we went through a process of challenge definition, and we looked at certain questions to try and help us determine where the successful projects could be. And one of the key things we talked about was trying to go with projects where we knew that we could access the data, where we could influence the opening up of data sets. So some of the projects are led by Belfast City Council staff because we are delivering those particular services. And what we're doing then in the Smart Belfast team is we're having those conversations in council. You've already seen the commitment from the top of the house in council to move this process forward. So we certainly don't want to be providing any barriers to opening up data. So we are already having discussions with departments within the council, and we've already started to open up data sets for various different competitions that we've been running over the past year. So any issues or problems with open up data sets, the Smart Cities team will, on your behalf, will have those conversations to get the data released.
Brilliant, thank you for that, Deborah. So that clarification is absolutely challenge owners and also with the Smart City team. If you're finding those challenges, let them know and they will try and take down those barriers. I'm just going to hand that back to yourself, Linda, for a moment. Does that help, Martin, on that question? Yeah, brilliant, lovely. So then we're going to move on to another anonymous. What if your idea overlaps on two of the challenges? Should you choose one? I think that's a nice dilemma to be in. Or write your application with reference to both. Linda.
Okay, that is a fantastic question, and one actually that we would be delighted to receive applications that actually look at both. I think Maura made the reference that, you know, in terms of her challenge area and how much it links transport and health both linked together. And we also know that a lot of exciting innovation happens between those crossing of boundaries. So very much open to project applications that look across multiple challenge areas. That's not an issue at all.
Brilliant, so multiple. So, okay, that's, I think, really positive because a lot of these will be overlapping and you'll see different opportunities in them. So come forward across multiple. Excellent. The other question is, how open is open data going to be? I'd love if this was not anonymous. I'd really, is the anonymous person here able to see what we're doing here? See what's happening? Oh, I like it. Brilliant, well done, well done.
Yeah, it was really around a basic point of opening up information right across the city to everyone, so not really just specifically for this, because after all, taxpayers and ratepayers paid for it being assembled in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Yes, okay. So I think that speaks to a really good point, and I think actually, before you even had a chance to finish that, Deborah wants to come back in on that.
I think I need a chair up there.
Yeah, you do need a chair up here.
Yes, I mean, obviously, opening up data, we have to be very careful in relation to open data principles and building trust and so on with our citizens. So we'll be very careful in terms of the data that we actually open up. So it will be data that can't actually point to a particular person or business. But one of the things we're trying to do is to create, in the longer term, we're trying to create like a digital data marketplace for the city, where we can start to open up data sets across the city. And we're doing that project by project. Obviously, a key place to get open data is going to be on the Open Data Portal, the central government's Open Data Portal, and Council provide a lot of data sets for that particular portal. But as time goes on, we also want to open up other data sets in terms of private sector data. So in the future, we do see and we do have a vision for a city data marketplace where we can open up data sets across private sector, public sector. There can be free data exchanged, but there could also be opportunities for possibly buying and selling data as well. So we do have a longer vision around that, and coming soon we hope to develop a dashboard for the city, basically showing the various different indicators and data of interest for the city. But a lot of these projects are going to open up data sets that we are then going to be able to feed through that particular dashboard, and that should be within the next 6 months.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Deborah. I think just speaking to the question as well, and further to Deborah's point, is that often it's knowing what value of the data sets, and these challenges are part of that, because only through this community asking for specific sets will different organizations start to understand the value of those and which ones need to be shared more readily. So I think this is that work in progress, and there's definitely ambition around it. So thank you for that question. Then I'm kind of conscious of time, but we have one here. 32 people have said, Brian, you've asked a good question. There's 32 people here who are saying, let's get this one answered. Will requested data be made available to all via the Open Data Northern Ireland data platform? Do we have anyone here? Yeah, so Deborah's saying yes to that. Perfect. Brian, do you want to ask any more on that? The answer was yes.
Yeah, I have a sort of vested interest in this because I sit on the Open Data and I panel advising government. So I'm from Belfast Metropolitan College. So yes, we're very keen that everyone's made aware of the portal. There's good data sets out there already, but I'd be very keen that anyone requesting data, that data could be shared to all, and that's one central place for all of the data. So hopefully our competition experts are aware of this, and I would certainly encourage you to be posting any data that's requested to the portal as one central place to look for it. So that would be excellent. Thank you.
Okay, so I think that we're kind of seeing the circle coming full here. Anything that comes out of that in terms of open data, speak to Brian and the team and get them onto the open data portal. Absolutely, that makes complete sense. So really good suggestion. Thank you for that, Brian. Will the SMEs have to match fund? Key question.
Okay, the scheme is 100% funded up to £25,000 for seed funding for scope and study. However, if you want to spend more than £25,000 as a collective, then you will have to match those funds. It's up to 25. So if you want to bring somebody on board that's actually going to cost you 80,000, then you will have to put the rest of the funds in.
Okay, all right. To the person, or sorry, to Stephen that asked that question. Stephen? Yeah, that covers that for you? Brilliant, lovely, thank you for the question. Is there an open forum where SMEs can seek partners? I think this spoke to the question we had earlier. Is the asker of this question, is this a different question that we had earlier?
They mentioned LinkedIn earlier, didn't they? They mentioned LinkedIn, but...
Deirdre's going to come in on that. Thank you, Deirdre.
I think this was really covered anyway by Deborah earlier when she spoke about the access to the forums on our website. So if you look at the Smart City website, there is a capability form there, and I think Ciara had actually put it up on Slido earlier. So there is a link to a forum there where you can detail the name of your company, what you're interested in, the various challenges you're interested in, what your capabilities are. And obviously, if you're putting that information on the forum, you're doing that with the understanding that it will be shared, and we can share that with other partners who might be interested in collaborating with you. And then that will come through to us in the Smart City team as a first point of contact, and then we will get in touch with you. But also, just to mention, and I think it has been mentioned earlier, that we have stands at the back of the room around each of the thematic areas. So I think we will be coming to a close shortly. And when you go to the back of the room, if you're interested in each of those challenges, go to the challenge area. There's a little fish bowl if you want to drop in your business card as well. And that'll indicate to us the areas that you're interested in. And then we will pull some collaboration around the challenges after today's event.
Brilliant. So I think that's probably a good point to start to draw this part of the session to a close. I appreciate there's questions there that we've not answered. What's going to happen is all of the questions that have been asked, along with their answers, and those that are up there will all be answered, and they will be circulated to this group. So it's not that these questions are going to go away and not be answered. They will be following this session this morning. So if there is another question or two that you have before you leave, please put it up, and they can also be answered. Thank you very much to our challenge owners, and to Linda and to Carl as well. And we wish you sincerely all the very best, because this is very exciting, and for these key challenges as you very eloquently put them across the city. And to the innovators in the room as well. So just before we close, I'm going to invite Deborah back up here just to make a couple of closing remarks for the session.
Okay, just to say thank you very much to everyone who's taken part. And just on one of the points that were raised there about match funding and so on, while this is primarily focused on SMEs, there are a lot of the large corporates in the room as well, so you can approach some of the large organisations to see where they can also join the networks and maybe provide platforms or provide opportunities to other resources that you wouldn't otherwise have access to. So hopefully today you can see that maybe through working together, us opening ourselves up a bit more about what our challenges are, that we can start to achieve some improvements in our city for our citizens to be able to live better in our city and people to be able to work better in the city so that we can actually attract people to come and visit the city and have a great experience and also attract people to come and invest in our city as well. But alongside all of that, hopefully you see an opportunity for you to be able to develop new products, new services, to make your business successful, and products and services that, if they're relevant for Belfast City, they will be relevant for other cities across the world as well. So can I just very quickly ask Mark McCann and Deirdre Ferguson and Ciara Gillen to stand up, because they're part of the Smart Cities team. So if you want to seek out Mark, Ciara and Deirdre at any stage to talk about the programme, or even to ask who do you connect with or whatever, these are the guys that'll help you out. Okay, thank you very much.